Hi, my name's Eric, welcome back to my channel. Let's talk again about Mitski. She just released her brand new album, Laurel Hell, and I'm here to break down its lyrics. Before I dive in, let me know in the comments down below what your favorite song on Laurel Hell is. Right now, mine is Love Me More. Check the description box for links to lists of nonprofits you can donate to. Please subscribe to be here when I post new videos and hit the bell icon to be notified when my videos go live. First things first, let's break down the title of this album. The mountain laurel is a delicate light pink flower that's found throughout the eastern US, and it happens to be poisonous. It grows in bushes that become twisted and dense, and sometimes people get caught in their tangled branches. That's called a laurel hell. So you have this beautiful, enticing flower that's also deadly. It lures you in and then it traps you. The album cover gives us an image of this, with Mitski in this dreamy, blissful state while she's surrounded by these white cracks or branches or maybe even lightning. This connection between the enticement of beauty and the feeling of being confined pretty closely reflects Mitski's relationship with her music career. Her art is her passion and it gives her life beauty, and the people who appreciate her art bring her joy. But then she's caught in the snare of the music industry and the demands and expectations of the public. This also tracks her ongoing struggles with love and yearning, which often overlap and blur with her feelings about music. This is clearest on the album's opening song, Valentine, Texas. Mitski opens the song by saying, "Let's step carefully into the dark. Once we're in, I'll remember my way around." Coming from a pop perspective where our baseline assumption is that songs are about love, this sounds pretty explicitly like it's about Mitski going to bed with someone she shares a history with. But Mitski is treating music as her lover. This is her return to music after a hiatus, a descent back into the dark, tangled thicket of her public career. And this framing is unexpected because we typically think about fame in terms of light, the spotlight, the limelight, seeing your name in lights, but that doesn't reflect how Mitski feels about it. And yet she's deciding to dive even deeper into this love. She says, "I'll show you who my sweetheart's never met." Whether her sweetheart is a person or her music, she's going to transform and reveal more of herself than before. And maybe this will unburden her of something. She says, "Let me watch those mountains from underneath and maybe they'll finally float off of me." Maybe making new music, like this album, will take this weight off of her, clear her vision, and free her from this laurel hell. But on working for the knife, she's not so sure. On the first verse, she says, "I cry at the start of every movie, I guess 'cause I wish I was making things too, but I'm working for the knife." At first listen, this is confusing. She's a creative, her work is making things, so why are working and making things in conflict? And then she explains, "I used to think I would tell stories, but nobody cared for the stories I had." There's a difference between just making art and releasing music through a label to the public. The knife isn't just one thing. It's her label, it's our economic system, it's social expectations, and yeah, it's her audience too. We collectively are the knife. Instead of a chorus, this song has a sort of refrain where Mitski mentions the knife at the end of 4 of the 5 verses. She says twice, "I'm working for the knife," then "I'm living for the knife," and finally, "I'm dying for the knife." To me, this sequence brings to mind the question, do you live to work or do you work to live? The problem for Mitski is it's both. Her art is her life, but it's also her living. That's the duality of her laurel hell, the love and the pain. That's why on the next song, Stay Soft, she says, "Open up your heart like the gates of hell. You stay soft, get beaten, only natural to harden up. You stay soft, get eaten, only natural to harden up." To be vulnerable with just one person is hard enough. If you have a rough dating history, for instance, you might become reluctant to share too much of yourself. But as a musician, you're putting yourself on display for anyone to comment on, scrutinize, and consume. To be loved is to be known, but someone can know you and use that knowledge against you. That's yet another iteration of the laurel hell, the temptation to know love and beauty, and the trap of being vulnerable. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know about the dual properties of fire. It can warm you up, or it can burn you. So when Mitski says, "Tell me what you want to burn away, 'cause I could be your stoker," she wants to pursue a passion so hot it erases everything around it. Connecting more deeply through love or through art, having the courage to pass through the gates of hell lets Mitski draw closer to the fire, but is it the type of heat that warms or burns? Mitski continues to open herself up and by doing so put herself at risk on everyone, which ties back to the opener by describing fame as entering the dark. She says, "I left the door open to the dark. I said, come in, whatever you are, but it didn't want me yet." Entering the dark is a fairly common image of death, so Mitski equating being a public figure with darkness is pretty telling. This song lyrically feels like the anti-nobody. She says that everyone warned her not to let in the dark, but she embraces it with open arms. She's relinquishing her power. She says, "Then like a babe in a crib, after some big hand turns out the light, I opened my arms wide to the dark. I said, take it all, whatever you want." This calls back to the song Thursday Girl from Puberty 2, where Mitski was willing to give herself up in order to find a connection, to heal her loneliness. Love and music both make Mitski feel less alone, but they also disempower her, anonymize her, and leave her open to exploitation. And when light does come back, it's in the form of heat lightning. If heat is connection and darkness is fame, then maybe heat and light together represent the type of private, intimate connection that Mitski's been yearning for. What's significant about the phenomenon of heat lightning is that it's actually regular lightning, just observed from a distance. Mitski says she's watching heat lightning running outside the window. On Nobody, a window represented Mitski's disconnect from the outside world and her loneliness. Mitski is alone in the dark, isolated by her fame, catching just brief flashes or glimpses of the warm, bright electricity of private passion she desires. But then Mitski steps out of her home and onto her doorstep where she can feel the storm drawing closer. And just like on Everyone, she says, "I give it up to you, I surrender." Except this time, she's giving herself over to real love. But still, she doesn't feel like she has power in love, and she's still learning how to develop her relationships. So on the Only Heartbreaker, she says, "If you would just make one mistake, what a relief that would be." Being fallible, being openly, observably imperfect is vulnerable, and Mitski views herself that way, but not her lover. So she feels like they have the upper hand over her. She says, "So I'll be the loser in this game. I'll be the bad guy in the play. I'll be the water main that's burst and flooding. You'll be by the window only watching." Not only does she feel like she's at a disadvantage next to this perfect person, but her career has crept in and made her feel like a performer even in her relationship. Just like she faces expectations as a public figure, she feels that same pressure to perform privately. And this creates a disconnect. The window that separated her from the world now separates her from her own partner, as she overflows with love and desire and imperfections. Her partner is this stolid, stone-faced statue, the perfect but dull rock in the relationship. And that leaves Mitski to fill the role of disruptor, of heartbreaker. Her passion continues to overflow on Love Me More, and one way that she conveys this is through her use of what we might call enjambment. In poetry, enjambment is the continuation of a sentence over the break between two lines, and here it happens on the pre-choruses. She sings, "When I'm done singing the song, I will have to find something else to do to keep me here. Something else to keep me. Here's my hand, there's the itch, but I'm not supposed to scratch." Having one line spill over into the next is a way that Mitski's testing her limits. Just like she wants to push this relationship to the next level, she wants to push her lyrics beyond the lines of this song. She needs something more than the love she was given by her partner on the Only Heartbreaker, and maybe by her audience. Like on the song Remember My Name from Be the Cowboy, she wonders if music can expand the boundaries of her life, if it can make her live longer and even farther in people's minds. And just like the burst water main on the Only Heartbreaker, she wants a love that can fill her up, drown her out, and clean her up. She doesn't want the burning, deadly love represented by fire, but the cleansing, living love represented by water. Fire burns out, but water keeps flowing, just like the lines of the song. But of course, the album's emotional peak is followed by its low points, and on There's Nothing Left Here For You, Mitski feels lost and empty. Whether this is about love or fame, Mitski doesn't have it anymore, and she's coming down hard from the high of that connection. Circling back to the opener and to Love Me More, she says, "You had it once before, not anymore, so go on to that sweetheart's door and find a new you." This is a creative or personal reinvention after losing an important part of her identity. Maybe she disconnected from the public after a successful album cycle, or maybe she ended a relationship that impacted her sense of self. She says, "You could touch fire, you could fly, it was your right, it was your life." Naturally, this now ended connection is represented by fire. It burned bright and it burned out. She flew and she landed. She was living for the knife, and now she's dying for the knife. And this has transformed her sense of self. On Should Have Been Me, she says, "When I saw the girl look just like me, and it broke my heart the lengths you went to hold me." This feels like a continuation of The Only Heartbreaker, where she felt she wasn't good enough for her lover, and of Love Me More, where she promised to change for love. Now, it seems like she looks back on this relationship and only recognizes herself on the surface. She also ties back to Love Me More when she describes this overwhelming clean feeling brought about by loneliness, and then to Everyone when she says, "A hand would come and lift me out and drop me in the middle of a labyrinth. She felt trapped in the Laurel Hell of this relationship, so what she needed to clean her up, to untangle her from this mess of branches, wasn't more of this deficient love, but to be free from it. She couldn't give her all to this relationship because she felt trapped by it and needed a break from it, the same way she needed a break from music. And maybe that's a good thing. On I Guess, Mitski says, "Without you, I don't yet quite know how to live." She's become too reliant on this relationship, whether it be to a person or to her career, in defining who she is. She's living for the knife. On the last song, she even felt alienated from herself, so now she has to take a long, hard look at herself. She says, "If I could keep anything of you, I would keep just this calm after you. It's as still as a pond I am staring into." She's returned to the pervasive quiet she experienced on Nobody and Heat Lightning and is reconsidering its role in her life. Maybe it's productive, or maybe she's like Narcissus, making art about herself and staring at her own reflection. Personally, I think it's the former. After all, it gave us this album. Finally, on That's Our Lamp, the very first upbeat Mitski album closer ever, she stands in the rubble of this love and looks back on one of the relationship's final moments, when she and her partner got into a fight and she went out to take a walk. She says, "That's our lamp, it shines like a big moon, we may be ending. I'm standing in the dark, looking up into our room where you'll be waiting for me." Once again, she's on the edge of the light and the dark. The light of this private relationship, and the dark of the greater world outside her window. And in a strange way, that gives her power. Her lover waits for her just like her audience waited for her through her hiatus. In this moment, she can make the choice to return to this love, and maybe even to revive it, if only temporarily. To me, this is Mitski settling into a cycle of love starting, building, peaking, and ending, and then reminiscing on it and learning from it, and following a similar cycle in her career, with these rolling waves of love and maybe hate she receives from the public with each new peak in popularity. But there's always that lamp, the flame she's drawn to like a moth, tempting her to return to that love and re-enter her Laurel Hell. So those are my initial thoughts on Laurel Hell. As always, I am totally open to different interpretations. I think that's the fun of it, so please feel free to discuss in the comments. And while you're there, let me know how you're enjoying this album. I love it. It's one of my favorites of the year so far. Don't forget to check the description box for links to lists of nonprofits you can donate to. Please subscribe to be here when I post new videos. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you're staying safe and healthy, and until next time, that's it.